politicians and industrialists from countries ranging from Ecuador to India who have been in trouble in their home countries for everything from human rights abuses to banking fraud, move their assets and wealth into the United States under the noses of investigators. We're talking about people who have been in all kinds of trouble, accused of some very bad things, who are using this system to hide their wealth, not only potentially from the governments and the taxing authorities in their home countries, but also from the victims in their home countries who might have a claim to some of that money.
Thank you for joining, everyone. Good to see you all here.
In early 2021, the ICIJ held an online meeting to discuss a new and surprising aspect of the reporting coming from the documents.
We finally have some data about the kinds of people who are using secretive trusts that are in the United States.
They were focusing on evidence that wealthy people from abroad were using trusts to hide money in the U.S.
Interesting. If you find that, take a look. It may be an interesting lead.
We began working with Washington Post reporter Debbie Senziber to investigate.
How are you doing?
It's a little bit overwhelming right now, and it's getting a little bit easier for me as the days go on and I become more familiar with the documents. One of the things that has surprised me most this early on, and I'm just starting and still working at it, is, I always thought this was an issue offshore. This was an issue somewhere else, in the Caribbean somewhere, in an island, perhaps. And what I'm finding and what I'm focusing on at this early stage is how the U.S. and specifically some states in the U.S. that you wouldn't expect are really helping to becoming go-to destinations.
The U.S. has long condemned offshore financial havens, but the document showed how people have been sheltering their money in states promising protection and secrecy that rival traditional offshore locations. Will Fitzgibbon and Debbie Senziber noticed in the documents that one state stood out: South Dakota.
I'd heard rumors of South Dakota being an increasingly aggressive tax haven and attracting billionaires and millionaires from around the world. I simply just started to dig into the data, searching South Dakota into our search box in these 12 million records that we had, and pretty quickly I got a sense that there was something there that I wanted to explore.
We early on found a document in the leaked records that showed that there were a number of trusts established in South Dakota, and of course our question was, who's establishing trusts in South Dakota? Why would someone from 2,000 miles away turn to Sioux Falls, South Dakota? And we just really wanted to answer that question.
The reporters found clients from 41 countries had set up more than 200 trusts in South Dakota and other states. There is no evidence in the documents that the trusts held criminal proceeds, which they are barred from knowingly accepting. But nearly 30 of them held assets connected to people or companies accused of fraud, bribery, or human rights abuses.
If you set up a trust in South Dakota, those records can be sealed by a court. So that's an incredibly strong incentive for someone whose primary objective is to make sure that his or her assets are not discoverable by a reporter or their tax authority back home.
This document shows a South Dakota trust for Colombian textile magnate Jose Duer-Ambar. Ambar had a well-publicized past before setting up the trust. He had forfeited $20 million to the U.S. government as part of a settlement of a drug money laundering case. He died in 2020. The documents also show 3 trusts in South Dakota created for Ecuadorian bankers William and Roberto ISAIAS. The brothers had been convicted in absentia in Ecuador for embezzling government bailout money from their failed bank. The trusts owned several shell companies in the British Virgin Islands. One held a family inheritance valued at $5 to $10 million. ISAIAS' conviction was later overturned amid controversy. Neither of the brothers responded to requests for comment about the trusts.
What we found so far is that roughly 20 high-profile politicians and industrialists from countries ranging from Ecuador to India, who have been in trouble in their home countries for everything from human rights abuses to banking fraud, move their assets and wealth into the United States under the noses of investigators. We're talking about people who have been in all kinds of trouble, accused of some very bad things, who are using this system to hide their wealth, not only potentially from the governments and the taxing authorities in their home countries, but also from the victims in their home countries who might have a claim to some of that money.
Two companies are prominent in the leaked documents: Trident, which created Ambar's trust, and the South Dakota Trust Company, which was used by the ISAIAS brothers. Neither firm would answer questions about their clients, but said in statements they follow applicable regulations and perform extensive due diligence.
We realized that over the years, a whole industry of banking and trust leaders had pushed legislation at the state level to make South Dakota into this worldwide destination for foreign wealth. And they did this by passing a number of laws that really appeared incremental at the time, but they were huge in this industry.
The center of this industry is Sioux Falls. Over the past decade, the amount of money in trusts in the state has more than quadrupled to $360 billion, fueled by dozens of laws that help protect trusts from creditors, taxing authorities, and foreign governments.
I was struck when I came in from the airport last night that the whole skyline of Sioux Falls, so to speak, is banks and trusts. Okay, we'll give this a shot.
We came here with Senzipper and Fitzgibbon to meet a former lawmaker who has raised concerns about how the state has made itself such a welcoming place for the trust industry.
Part of what's troubled me about this trust industry, frankly, is that they have basically captured the state legislature and can essentially pass whatever they put together. I think they are trying to design a system that works well and is safe. However, I also know that there are people in the world who are just as smart and would take advantage of you if they thought they could. And that's my concern, is that we get ourselves set up where all of a sudden, we become like a Switzerland or like a Panama. I would be concerned about reputational damage to the state.
The South Dakota Division of Banking said in a statement it routinely audits trust companies and that the firms are required to do intensive vetting with extra attention to foreign clients. But the leaked documents have heightened concerns about the secrecy of trusts and the limitations of existing state and federal oversight and regulation.
We already found evidence of people credibly accused of crimes and other wrongdoing, breaching the U.S. financial system. What about terrorists? What about drug traffickers? What about dictators or their associates? We just don't know, because though we had almost 12 million documents, that's just this little tiny glimpse into this thriving industry in the United States.
Over the past month, journalists from around the world have published hundreds of stories stemming from the leaked Pandora Papers.
We have never seen this many heads of state, ministers, politicians, and global billionaires in one location before. My interest as a journalist is to connect these stories to contemporary issues in our society and the ills of our society. And many experts say that the secret financial system is a part of that, and they're the kind of stories I'm hoping that we can tell.